The union for many of the country's dock workers reached a deal Thursday to end a strike. It's a tentative agreement with the United States Maritime Alliance. Both sides now have until January 15th to negotiate a new contract. That strike shut down most operations and ports on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast, including the Port of Houston, even though it only lasted for 3 days. It already started to stress the U.S. supply chain, and it also sparked some panic buying. Several stores had empty shelves as people stocked up on goods, anticipating potential shortages. Ironically, most of the things shoppers targeted were items like toilet paper and water, things that don't come in through our ports. Well, joining us for Insight is Margaret Kidd, professor of the Supply Chain and Logistics Technology at the University of Houston. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Well, hello from Houston.
You know, most people probably don't think about how dock workers affect their lives. What's their role in the economy?
Well, ports play a critical role in our economy, and the international longshoremen are those workers that keep trade flowing. Trade as a percentage of U.S. GDP is around 28%. So it's substantive. It's a big impact on our overall economy.
Both sides call this a tentative agreement. One thing keeping it from being permanent is the question of port automation. Can you tell us more about that issue?
Right. The tentative agreement set aside a 62% pay raise, which is spread over 6 years, and yet to be negotiated is the topic of automation. So, U.S. ports are probably 2 decades behind our counterparts in Europe and in Asia in terms of embracing automation and technology. The ILA has concerns about this technology replacing workers. But if we look at the last 100 years in just about every industry in the US, including academia and journalism, technology plays a very, very large role in how we do our everyday work.
One of the things you just mentioned, this agreement comes with a significant pay raise for port workers. Is that something that will also lead to higher prices?
Well, let's put it in a different perspective. When we experienced COVID, these frontline workers, the ILA, put their families second and American families first. They worked in very difficult conditions, and at a time where we experience record trade, it's reasonable that they request an equitable compensation for their work and the risks they put themselves at each day.
Now, this strike lasted for 3 days. We saw panic buying empty some store shelves. Will there be any other impact people may notice?
Well, on a short-term basis, there really was no impact. Unfortunately, as folks on the Gulf Coast do, and it's a psychological response, if there's a hurricane or a freeze, you have folks head down to the local HEB or Kroger's and overbuy, the toilet paper and the bottled water. It was unfortunate to see. There was really no reason to panic. That those are two products that are domestically sourced. But so much of what we consume, whether it's at the grocery store or at a car dealership or at the mall, does come in a container through a port at some point on its journey from manufacturing to the point of consumption.
All right. Well, Professor Margaret Kidd, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for hosting me.
Texas is suing drug manufacturers and others for what it's calling a conspiracy to increase the price of insulin. Attorney General Ken Paxton alleges drug makers had no real reason to increase prices, and that money is being funneled back to pharmacy benefit managers who worked with manufacturers to hike the prices. The state claims this violates the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, adding there's been more than 1,000% spike in insulin costs since the 90s. The AG's office also filed a lawsuit against the TikTok social media platform. The suit claims TikTok violated a Texas law called the Securing Children Online Through Parental Empowerment, or SCOPE Act. The Attorney General said the SCOPE Act prohibits sites from sharing or selling a minor's personal information without permission from a parent or legal guardian. The AG's lawsuit seeks civil penalties of up to $10,000 per violation. TikTok is defending itself from the accusations. The company tells our media partners at the Texas Tribune that it, quote, offers robust safeguards for teens and parents. A dad convicted of killing his daughter, now days away from the Texas death chamber. But calls to stop his execution are getting powerful support.
It'll be a very grave injustice, and I wouldn't want it on my watch.
The new evidence that has some state lawmakers asking for mercy.